The distant planet gleamed with promise. A shimmering blue orb nestled in the void of space, a beacon of hope for humanity's survival. Captain Lila Mercer and her crew of 7 brave explorers thought they'd found the perfect new home. Lush vegetation, breathable air, and strange, otherworldly beauty awaited them. But as night fell, the planet revealed its true nature. The ship they'd landed in was wrapped in massive, sticky webs, and shadows stirred ominously in the distance. What began as a mission of hope quickly became a fight for survival against monstrous, 8-legged predators that hunted in the dark. Before we dive deeper into this horrifying tale of survival, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications. You don't want to miss more chilling stories like this one. Now, back to the terror on the Spider Planet. The Starship Pathfinder hovered above the planet they had dubbed Arachnos, named for the strange web-like structures visible even from orbit. The initial scans had been promising. Breathable atmosphere, abundant plant life, and no signs of intelligent life, perfect for colonization. Captain Lila Mercer adjusted her headset, her dark eyes scanning the shimmering green forests below. "All right, team," she said. "This could be it. Humanity's next home." The crew cheered lightly, a mix of relief and nervous anticipation. Earth had become a wasteland, and humanity was desperate for a second chance. As they descended, the planet's surface revealed itself in stunning detail. Trees with trunks as wide as city skyscrapers stretched high into the misty sky, their leaves glinting like glass. The ground was carpeted with a thick, spongy moss that glowed faintly underfoot. The air was humid, filled with the scent of something sweet and alien. "Perfect," murmured Dr. Elias Grant, the ship's xenobiologist, his silver hair gleaming in the sunlight. He crouched down to study a strange flower that pulsed like a living heart. "Yeah, perfect if you like creepy," muttered Sergeant Declan Rhodes, the team's security officer. His hand hovered near his holster as his eyes darted to the shadows. "This place is too quiet." "Relax, Rhodes," said First Mate Mira Patel, rolling her eyes. "No signs of predators, remember?" As they moved deeper into the forest, the team began to notice the webs. At first, they were small, intricate creations strung between tree branches. But soon, they came upon massive structures. Webs as thick as rope, glistening with dew, stretching across entire clearings. "This is incredible," Elias said, snapping photos. "The size of the arachnids that built these must be substantial." "Yeah, great," Declan muttered. "Let's just hope they're vegetarian." The team laughed nervously and pressed on. As dusk began to settle, the crew returned to the ship. They were tired but exhilarated, their packs brimming with samples and data. But when they approached the Pathfinder, their excitement turned to confusion, and then dread. The ship was covered in thick, sticky webs, stretching from the landing gear to the hull and even the cockpit. "What the hell?" Lila murmured, drawing her flashlight. Elias leaned closer, running a gloved hand along the webbing. "Remarkable tensile strength. This wasn't here this morning." "Captain, we've got movement," Declan barked. In the growing darkness, shadows scuttled between the trees, moving too fast to track. Strange clicking noises echoed through the air, like a chorus of claws tapping on metal. "Inside, now," Lila ordered. The team scrambled to the ship's entrance, but the webs had fused the hatch shut. "We're locked out," Mira said, her voice trembling. The clicking grew louder, closer, and then out of the shadows they came. The first sign of the impending attack was the sound. It started as faint tapping, barely audible over the crew's labored breaths, and the hum of their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The tapping escalated to a chorus, a rhythmic clatter that seemed to echo from every direction. The spiders emerged from the shadows like a nightmare made flesh. Their bodies glistened with a chitinous sheen, each segment reflecting the dim starlight. Some were the size of large dogs, while others towered over the humans, standing nearly 8 feet tall when their spindly legs unfolded. Their many eyes glittered like obsidian jewels, and their mandibles clicked in unison, emitting an otherworldly, high-pitched rasp. "Contact, 12 o'clock, Declan shouted, raising his plasma rifle. The first volley of shots illuminated the clearing in harsh, strobing flashes. The spiders moved unervingly fast, their legs a blur as they darted forward. One unlucky arachnid caught a direct hit to its thorax and exploded in a spray of greenish ichor. The smell was acidic, burning their nostrils. But for every spider that fell, 3 more emerged, their numbers multiplying as they poured out of the webbed forest like a black tide. "Fall back!" Lila yelled, but the chaos had already descended. Elias screamed as one of the creatures lunged from the side, its barbed legs pinning him down before he could react. Its mandibles pierced his suit, injecting venom into his bloodstream. His face twisted in agony as his veins darkened visibly under his skin, his screams turning to gurgles. "Get it off him!" Mira shouted, but her panic swing with a torch was too late. The spider dragged Elias into the darkness, leaving a glistening trail of ichor behind. "They're everywhere," Declan barked, firing wildly as another spider leapt at him, its legs curling midair. He ducked just in time, the creature's fangs grazing his shoulder plate. "Lila, we have to go!" Mira grabbed the captain's arm, her voice cracking with desperation. The team broke into a frantic sprint, stumbling over roots and thick moss as the spiders gave chase. Their movements were accompanied by the sound of ripping webs and the heavy rustle of legs on foliage. The forest, which had seemed so vibrant and full of promise by day, now felt like a labyrinth of death. The towering trees loomed overhead, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out the moonlight. Only the faint bioluminescence of the moss underfoot offered any illumination. Lila pressed her back against the massive trunk of a tree, her chest heaving as she struggled to catch her breath. Beside her, Mira gripped a makeshift torch, its weak flame flickering as the humidity threatened to extinguish it. Declan crouched nearby, his rifle trained on the shadows, his finger twitching on the trigger. "I saw them take Harris and Taylor," Mira whispered, her voice trembling. "They wrapped them in webs, like mummies. They were still alive, Lila, still moving." "Focus," Lila said, though her own voice was strained. "We need a plan. We can't keep running all night." As if in response, the clicking started again, closer this time. Glowing eyes peered out from the underbrush, their unblinking gazes fixed on the humans. "They're playing with us," Declan muttered, "hurting us, waiting for us to tire out." Suddenly, one of the spiders lunged from the darkness, its legs slicing through the air like blades. Declan reacted instantly, firing a burst of plasma rounds that struck the creature mid-leap. It crumpled to the ground, its legs twitching as green fluid seeped into the moss. "Move! Now!" Lila shouted. The group sprinted again, their torches and rifle blasts cutting through the suffocating darkness. They stumbled into a rocky outcropping and ducked behind the boulders, their backs pressed against the cool stone. "They're not giving up," Mira gasped. Her hands trembled as she tried to relight her dying torch. "They won't," Declan said grimly. "Not until we're dead or wrapped in their damned webs." Lila looked at her remaining team, their faces pale and streaked with dirt and sweat. "We're going back to the ship at first light," she said. "We'll find a way to get inside, or we'll die trying." When dawn broke, the forest transformed again. The oppressive darkness gave way to eerie stillness, the trees casting long shadows across the mossy ground. The spiders were gone, retreating to their webbed lairs to avoid the sunlight. Cautiously, the team approached the Pathfinder. The ship looked like a grotesque cocoon, its sleek metal hull buried under layers of sticky, glistening webbing. "How are we supposed to get through this?" Mira asked, her voice hollow. Lila ignited her blowtorch, the small blue flame sputtering before catching properly. She hesitated, then pressed the flame to the nearest strand of webbing. To her surprise, it shriveled and blackened instantly, curling away from the heat. "They burn," Lila said, a spark of hope flickering in her eyes. "The webs are flammable." Declan grinned, a rare sight after the horrors of the night. "Well, finally some good news." Working quickly, the team fashioned makeshift flamethrowers from the ship's emergency supplies. As they burned through the webs, the spiders stirred, their lairs lighting up with furious activity. The first wave emerged before they'd even cleared the cockpit. The creatures hissed and shrieked, their movements frantic as they charged the humans. The battle was chaotic, a cacophony of fire and screams. The air was thick with the acrid stench of burning webs and charred spider flesh. Each burst of flame illuminated the forest in brief, blinding flashes, casting the spiders' monstrous shadows against the trees. Declan stood his ground at the front line, his plasma rifle spitting bursts of energy into the advancing horde. "Keep going. I'll hold them off." "No, we stick together," Lila shouted, but Declan shook his head, his jaw set with grim determination. "Just get that ship ready." Declan's final stand gave the others precious minutes to clear the hatch and ignite the ship's engines. As the flames spread across the clearing, the spiders screeched and retreated, their bodies curling in death throes. Inside the ship, Mira worked frantically to override the lockdown protocols. "We're almost there," she shouted, her hands flying across the console. But just as they were about to escape, a spider smashed through the cockpit window, dragging Mira out into the chaos. "No!" Lila screamed, reaching for her, but the hatch slammed shut as the ship began to lift off. From the cockpit, Lila watched in horror as the clearing burned below, the remaining spiders retreating into the safety of the forest. Myra's screams faded into the distance, leaving only silence. Alone in the cockpit, Lila stared at her reflection in the glass, her face pale and streaked with tears. The flames of arachnids dwindled behind her as the Pathfinder ascended into the void. She knew the truth now. Arachnids 4 wasn't a home. It was a death trap, a world that lured its prey with beauty and silence before devouring it whole. As the ship drifted into the blackness of space, Lila whispered a promise to herself. "No one else will die here. I'll make sure of it." And yet, deep within the tangled forest of Arachnids 4, the spiders waited, their webs stretching ever wider, preparing for the next unwitting visitors to their deadly world.